Hello, dear comrades. Today we continue our meetings, or whatever to call them, a course of lectures. After the introductory lecture on the concept of public safety, today we have the first topic. The topic is the most important one, on which everything is fundamentally based. This is the foundation of the concept of public safety. The topic is called Trinity: matter, information, measure. So, a person perceives the surrounding world through their senses. Here you see on the poster the perception of the surrounding world by a person. Well, if that's the case, of course this is in the picture to represent the entire universe. In the universe, all processes have a vibrational nature. Sound is vibration, light is vibration. So, the electron oscillates, rotating around the nucleus of the atom, the nucleus in the molecule, the earth, around the sun, around the earth. The moon rotates, the sun somehow moves in the galaxy. That is, all processes are vibrational. Radio waves are vibrations, electromagnetic waves are vibrations. And all these vibrations are perceived by a person through their senses. It is generally accepted in textbooks that vision is important. This is the visible spectrum of frequencies, hearing, the sound spectrum of frequencies, and smell. This is you. Perception at the molecular level includes touch and taste. And these senses are not recognized as legitimate by science, although there is now an understanding of the human biofield, meaning a person emits oscillations and also perceives oscillations. For example, when looking at the sun, a flash is something everyone knows. A person has a base, cardiovascular system. You know there are favorable and unfavorable days. Forecasts are made. What is this? It means that oscillatory processes on the sun affect a person, meaning they perceive these oscillatory processes, and a person has a biofield. The concept of public safety is considered, and great attention is paid to biofield structures, the emission of oscillations by a person, and the perception of all oscillations through the biofield. This is what we have restored in this picture. So what is the conclusion? A person perceives everything that happens around them as oscillatory processes, including the biofield. In the next picture, we will talk about worldview systems. Everything that happens in the universe, the world, and all the processes occurring around a person can be perceived either correctly or incorrectly. And depending on their perception, there are corresponding consequences. And from these consequences, where the cause is either a correct or incorrect understanding of the surrounding world, depends, generally speaking, the life and death of entire civilizations. That is, as we already discussed in the introductory lecture, if a person is right, correctly perceives the surrounding world, accurately assesses the situation around them, and evaluates phenomena, including those of social life, they make the right decisions. And if he perceives the surrounding world incorrectly, then he makes erroneous decisions. Well, now I will give the most striking example. Here is what comes to mind. By the way, a drunkard. The drunkard sees double, meaning his world is distorted. He sees two people, but in reality there is only one. I even know a case about one drunkard who got into a car accident. A motorcycle, rather a car with one headlight, but he thought there were two, and he dove between two motorcycles and ended up under the car. So, perception works the same way. Are we assessing correctly a strike? What is it? Are people fighting for their rights or the opposite? They use people to achieve their goals. And there are many such paradoxical phenomena that seem obvious at first glance. But if you look deeper, it turns out that everything is not so simple. Therefore, people can live in harmony with nature and other people. That is, with the world around them. Or they can, as we have already discussed the concept, perceive other people as talking tools that can be exploited like cattle. We actually live in such a civilization. And this, precisely this, What I am showing in the picture defines worldview systems, and everything else follows from them. Histories, ideologies, rights, finances, they depend on worldview systems. What is worldview? Worldview is a set of principles, views, beliefs that determine a person's attitude towards the surrounding world and towards themselves. Here is a simple picture. What is drawn on it? So here is a chemical plant. From it there is smoke coming out of the pipe, and planes are dropping bombs, while nearby at that time, trees. Birds are singing. The sun is shining. Here, demonstrators are walking, wanting, so to speak, a salary, and someone else is rising against something. And so a person looks at this side of life and that side. Based on their understanding, they form attitudes towards nature, life, social processes, the economy, and so on. And these worldview principles, the combination of these principles, views, and beliefs are formed based on a person's philosophical, moral, aesthetic, and political views. But only philosophy summarizing all elements of the worldview system gives the worldview a complete form. What types of worldviews are there? Well, according to a well-known classification, there are actually many of them. If you delve into these philosophical labyrinths, you can find all sorts of things. Ultimately, they can be reduced to two. The first, which currently dominates our world, is the materialistic worldview and the idealistic worldview. Or in other words, they are called scientific. The materialistic worldview is considered scientific, while the idealistic one includes various religious beliefs, cults, and so on. In addition, there are many other names, and all these names and views can be reduced to just two models, which are presented here. The first model is the kaleidoscope, and the second is the mosaic. Well, everyone knows both the mosaic and the kaleidoscope. What is a mosaic? You have probably encountered a mosaic canvas in cities at exhibitions. And there, a mosaic is made up of colored stones or various elements, depicting some kind of picture. And a person, looking at this picture as a whole, even if they do not see some fragment of it, or for example, an old mosaic canvas where some part of the picture has chipped away and the stones have fallen off, can mentally reconstruct this picture. And in a kaleidoscope, everything spins and rotates. It's a children's toy. Remember, you twist it like this, and you see one picture, twist it again, and you see another. With a kaleidoscopic perception of the world, people believe that everything is random. There is chaos all around, and there are no causal relationships. But with a mosaic perception of the world is holistic. Everything in it is ordered. All is interdependent and mutually conditioned, and all processes are connected to each other in one way or another by a certain measure of development. It seems there is nothing tricky here, yet in this trickery there are very deep consequences. Our entire academic science is actually based on a kaleidoscopic perception of the world. Everything is random, which means there is chaos all around. Well, in particular, many economic theories today are based on the so-called theory of Ilya Prigogine. Or it is also called synergetics. There are different names for it. But what is the essence? Ilya Prigogine is Russian, of Russian descent, lived in Belgium, and he recently passed away, about a year ago approximately. He created such a work. His most famous book is Order Out of Chaos. Or he also has a work called The Arrow of Time, and many other works. What does he do there? He does a simple thing, which is this. He transfers processes occurring in the chemical and physical world to social processes. That is, he says there are some processes, something is diffusing, molecules collide with each other, and then there is chaos all around. And under certain circumstances, boom, there comes a bifurcation point, so to speak, and the system transitions to a new state. Well, generally speaking, such phenomena do exist in the physical and chemical world, but they cannot be transferred to the social environment. Why? In this way, he deprives a person of consciousness. That is, we are somewhat unreasonable. That is, you, people, are diffusing. That's why a revolution happened. The price of oil went up. You understand, right? That's why suddenly, boom bang, a bifurcation point will come, and we will transition to some other state. That is, all processes in the social environment are uncontrollable for him. I was at the Kondratiev readings in St. Petersburg, which took place in the spring of 1995. And I was surprised there, almost everyone who spoke. They were all economists speaking from the position of Ilya Prigogine. That is, synergetics, chaos, this bifurcation point. So it turns out that all our economic science is based on this theory. That is, the world for them is fragmented. These two models are very important, but how do you choose here? This is the very arbitrariness. That is, either you understand what is happening, or you do not understand, and then you are imposed one model or another. Let's move on. So, how is such a presentation of knowledge achieved? After all, in a mosaic and in a kaleidoscope, the stones are the same. And here is the next slide, the picture. What is depicted here? If you mentally imagine all knowledge as colored skulls, red for physics, green for biology, blue for chemistry, red for mathematics, and so on. You see, there is a lot of knowledge, and there are empty frames, picture 1, picture 2. And the little person is looking at this picture and that one. And this essential knowledge can be given to a person in the form of a mosaic canvas or in the important form of a kaleidoscope. The presentation of knowledge means that if you know something, like mosaic pictures of the world, the little person sees a house, a chimney, birds singing, a lake, the sun shining, and smoke coming from the chimney. Everything is good. Now, in the other picture below, there are fewer birds, fewer bushes, and fewer rays of sunlight. But the person sees the whole picture. It remains the same for him. However, with a kaleidoscopic perception of the world, you don't even need to remove any knowledge pieces. You just need to swap them around, and the picture will fundamentally change. So, all our academic, higher, so to speak, secondary and preschool education, they all form a kaleidoscopic idiocy in people. When it comes to knowledge, a person is filled with a lot of it, but they cannot connect it all together. I once came across a book in the St. Petersburg Public Library. It is called A Book for Beginning Readers. The author is a teacher, Vodovozov, and what is surprising is that I remembered my mother when she was walking. She finished 4 grades of a church parish school. And there I asked, "Mom, how did they teach you there?" And she told me how they were taught. In school, the little bird of God knows neither worry nor toil. And this book for beginning readers, for the most ordinary people, looks like this. You flip to the first page, and there is this little verse. The little bird of God knows neither worry nor toil. You turn the page, and it shows how animals live. You turn the page again, and there is some fable. You turn the page, and there is information from geography. You turn the page, and there is information from history. That is, this book for beginning readers formed a holistic, a perception of the world. And now we have lessons coming, one lesson after another, one in biology, another in mathematics. And as a result, people, for example, I will just give an example. Our scientists and politicians do not understand that religion is a means of controlling millions of people. Therefore, they say, religion is outside the state. But under religious views, under the informational influence of religion, people are guided and behave in a certain way in life, right? But religion is separated from the state. There are different ideologies in religions, right? For Christians, it's one. For Muslims, it's another. Even what is said about usury, but our authorities do not understand this. Why? Not because they suffer from kaleidoscopic idiocy. They cannot grasp such a thing. Again, we have already discussed this in our introductory lecture. Clear politics is the management of millions of people. And some believe, I will engage in economics. I am outside of politics. We need to focus on the economy. But it is precisely political views that determine the world of economic relations. That is, it is such a storm. And I was recently at the forum of Russian producers. Russian, Ryzhkov, who leads the Prime Minister of the USSR during Gorbachev's time, who was part of the Russian Society of Commodity Producers, so to speak, entrepreneurs. Well, there was Delyagin, who is now promoting his authority. He also spoke there and said, I have come to the conclusion that we need to go into politics because no economic measures solve anything in the country, so we need to go. And so he went into that very thing. As for our homeland, like Rogozin, and even if we recall the years of perestroika, the so-called reforms, it turned out that our outstanding reformers, like Berezovsky and Gusinsky, initially engaged in economics, but then realized that the entire economy is subordinate to politics and rushed into the fray. But nothing is decided in the Duma either, because the Duma is subordinate to global politics. This is proof that all of this is revealed. That is, it is formed within the system of school education. Therefore, well, for example, the economy as such cannot be effective. What can be effective? Managing economic processes, the national economy. This means we need to know how the economy is managed, right? Methods, ways of management. And we remember the General Secretary said, the economy must be economical. So it's just nonsense, right? Everything is based precisely on management. Here is an example, so to speak, of this methodology. The role of methodology in philosophy also performs a methodological function. Methodology is a system of principles and methods for constructing and organizing the theoretical and practical life of people. That is, everything is determined by methodology. And methodology itself exists, as well as teachings about this entire system. Therefore, methodology is the foundation of independent knowledge of the world, those who do not know it. That person is a hostage to those who know it. Let's remember these pyramids. Do you remember we discussed this in the introductory lecture? So, the pyramid of the structure of society and the pyramid of knowledge, at the top is precisely methodology. Therefore, those who do not know methodology become hostages to those who know and understand this methodology. So remember what Kozma Prutkov said, look to the root. Therefore, methodology is the root of any power. Here is a red slogan. Thus, those who know and master methodology cannot be deceived. Therefore, in the concept of public safety, we tell people to master methodology. That is, to be able to distinguish right from wrong, false from truth, and so on. True from false, truth from lies, meaning ordinary things like what is just and what is unjust, and so on. The meaning of methodology. Well, to confirm what I said, what is depicted in this picture. Example, what methodology prevailed in Russia before 1917? A dogmatic quote. That is, theology, here is the Bible, and on what was all statehood built, orthodoxy, autocracy, nationality, right. That is, all biblical dogmas were present. Therefore, new methodologies, dialectical materialism, here it is, the Diyanat and the commissioners in dusty helmets, they easily dealt with it. We have already looked at the film, remember. Why the Bolsheviks won? They seated workers at desks and provided them with a new methodology. There were many mistakes, there were inaccuracies, but it was much more powerful than, quote, dogmatic theology. And therefore, dialectical materialism easily dealt with it. And now, when many are trying to justify it, you should carefully look at the footage of the newsreels. Just yesterday I was watching at your hotel, you see. It was the people who were destroying the churches. Now they are trying to present this differently to those who would like to, but people saw that the priests of Salvan said one thing, while in life it was another. And when they were given the opportunity, so to speak, they destroyed the churches. The same thing actually happened in 1991. What happened? And people saw that the general secretaries said one thing from the podium, yes, but in life it was another, meaning they live in their own way. And when many are now wondering why the people did not come out to defend the authorities. 20 million ideological fighters in 1991, and no one lifted a finger. Why? And the same situation, that is, ordinary people saw these party officials from the CPSU and in the district committees, port committees, and so on. By the way, do you know the joke about how a port committee differs from port pants? The answer is this: one butt fits in pants, but several in a port committee. Dad, 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 dad. So the people saw all this, and when, so to speak, all this happened, no one came out to defend. Here you have, it seems. Such things are perceived by the people, whether we want it or not. This is why it is happening now. 3 generations of Soviet people have mastered a more advanced methodology of dialectical materialism. There are many errors in it, and therefore you can't drag them back into citation dogmatic theology. It won't work. That is, generally speaking, what is our country ahead of the whole planet? We rejected idealistic atheism in 1917. And in 1991, we rejected materialistic atheism. That is, there is no God in the church. Instead of God, there was another understanding. Well, here the open atheism of Marxism was materialistic. And therefore, our people, our country, more than any other country in the world, are ready to embrace a holistic worldview, a new methodology. Well, and it is important what the conclusion is from what I said. To conceal the possibility of knowing the world, one must extract and hide the methodology, which was done in the ancient Egyptian world. What were we talking about at the very beginning? Now we will move on to this. Well, let's remind ourselves, because different people watch the lectures. I will briefly explain what is idealism. Idealism comes from the French word idéalisme, and from the Greek eidos, meaning idea. It is the ancient philosophical doctrine about the ideal spiritual foundation of the world. Thus, this doctrine does not reject nature or matter, but considers them inferior, and therefore not the true kind of being. The opposite doctrine is materialism. Thus, the Bible is like a document expressing the ideals of idealism. In the book of Moses, let's reflect on how existence is described there. This is how God created. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. What is the process of creation? 7 days. The first day, the creation of light, the separation of light from darkness. Day and night were created. The second day, God created the firmament of heaven. The third day is the creation of land and plants. The fourth day is the creation of 2 lights and stars. Note, 2 lights and stars. That is, one light is the sun, the other light is the moon. So the 5th day is the creation of fish, reptiles, and birds. On the 6th day, the creation of livestock, creeping things, and beasts. At the same time, the creation of man. On the 7th day, God rested. This is why I listed this. Each person present here, who is watching this film right now, whether you acknowledge it or not, is your right. That is, if you want, acknowledge that it was so, that God rests. I will quote you another story. Another document, the Quran, has a description of what is approximately said here, and it sounds like this. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the living, the sustainer. Neither drowsiness nor sleep overtakes Him, meaning He does not rest. To Him belongs all that is in the heavens and on the earth. Who can stand before Him except by His permission? He knows what was before them and what will be after them. and they do not comprehend anything of his knowledge except what he wills. His throne encompasses the heavens and the earth, and their protection does not burden him. Indeed, he is the Most High, the Most Great. What is here in this definition of God? The universe is eternal. It has always existed. God never rests. Everything in the universe belongs, but here there was nothing. That is, there are two beginnings. Either the universe is eternal and infinite, and all processes within it are governed, or there was nothing, and it came from nothing. Was created. That is, if we are to speak of this, it again refers to the Big Bang, the emergence of the universe. But keep in mind that our scientists they consider this only guided by their knowledge of a fragment of the universe, and they do not know it completely. And if we are to talk about the Big Bang, then maybe it did occur in our fragment of the universe, but then there was definitely another opposite or some other process in the fragment that we do not know about. That is, all processes in the universe are oscillatory. And oscillations, as you know, can last in what we measure in hertz, in seconds. And these oscillatory processes can last for billions, millions, and trillions of years in the eternal universe. Here it is, materialism. Materialism comes from the Latin materialis, meaning substantial. This is also the ancient philosophical doctrine about the objective existence of the world, its independence from the will of control. Spirit, consciousness, that is, everything is material. It does not reject spiritual phenomena and values, but considers them as properties determined by matter at higher levels of its development. The opposite doctrine is idealism, and the latest, modification. So to speak, of this materialism is the doctrine of Marxism. Marxism is a purely materialistic point of view. It is the doctrine of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. What does it include? It is a system of philosophical, economic, and socio-political views. Marxism was formed in the mid-19th century, and as I mentioned in the introductory lecture, it was demanded by the global mafia to solve its problems, to maintain control over all social processes on the planet, particularly to restrain the process of people consuming material goods. What was the proclaimed goal? The liberation of the proletariat from capitalist exploitation. And to justify this goal, an analysis of the most important aspects of existence was conducted: matter, consciousness, the laws of the historical process, and so on. Marxist philosophy is considered a scientific worldview. It rejects the religious view of the world. That is, it states that matter is primary, consciousness is the result of reflecting the objective processes of the world, and thus matter, when it transitions into a new qualitative state, supposedly does so by itself. How did it happen without management? Well, it just happened and formed humanity. We will discuss this further below. Why did I mention these two powerful teachings? This is what we know.